Okay, so look, I went to a lunch last week with a bunch of old spies.
Sounds fun.
I got invited to look, it's a little fun. When you get black bagged and zip tied and thrown in the back of a van and you wake up in Mogadishu with your phone in your backpack. Look, bottom line was they drink a lot more than I remember.
And I'm surprised that you even got an invite.
I don't, to be perfectly honest, I don't remember much about anything after my Barramundi Schnitty. But here's the thing. They actually sort of, when I said, look, I'm doing a podcast, half the room stepped away from me. The other half of the room stepped up to me and went, yeah, tell us more.
Yeah.
So what I want to do is I want to put one out there that we've already done. I want to do a replay of a podcast called The Full Minsky. It was our second one.
And it was a good one as well.
It's a fun one. But also, I was approached recently by the ABC and they wanted to do an in-depth look at this very story. So once you've listened to The Full Minsky, go onto the ABC Listen app and look up Days Like These and an episode called Sergei the Spy. And it's literally a walkthrough. I walked down Oxford Street to tell the full story and reenact the story of The Full Minsky.
And so were you drinking lots of... It was whiskey, wasn't it? It wasn't vodka, because he was opposite to what you would expect from a Russian spy.
Exactly. He was drinking lots of whiskey, very much like I was when I was at lunch the other day, which is also another reason why I probably didn't get around to writing a new episode.
Yes, because basically you've been drunk or hungover.
Well, you know, as I said, when you wake up in Mogadishu with your phone in your ass, what are you going to do? You've got to get home somehow.
And thank God you're back.
Here we are.
You're listening to I Spy, the podcast that is the tea in a Russian poison plot.
I always drink coffee on the plane.
Hello, my name is Michelle Stevenson. I'm a national news director with Nova and a journalist. And I have to say, I've covered a lot about information, freedom of information, and exactly who is in charge of all of these secrets. And it's really been something that I've wanted to dig deeper into. So I've brought my friend David Callan along. I thought he could help us out. I mean, you may listen to him speak and think, what does this idiot know? But he actually used to work for ASIO, and I thought we could get together and talk ASIO, counterintelligence, espionage, all the fun things, but in a idiot kind of way. No?
Did you just call me an idiot?
I mean, I didn't mean to.
I resemble that remark.
So I Spied, we're going to be unveiling some of the secrets of Australia's intelligence agency and kind of a bit more about its humdrum reality compared to the James Bond glitz and glamour that we kind of think is happening.
It really ain't that exciting.
Well, last week we tapped into how you knew a terrorist. You kind of went to school with him, right?
Suspected terrorist.
Suspected terrorist. Alleged terrorist,
yes.
And we kind of unpacked how you got into ASIO and kind of what ASIO does. Well, this week we're going to look at a few other things, the KGB, CIA, ASIO, counterintelligence.
The guys.
The guys. Is that what you like to call them, the guys?
No, they were the targets.
Well, what about KGB? We haven't really talked about KGB. We've kind of touched on the CIA and the MI5. When do you go into KGB?
Well, we don't have KGB here anymore. Well, it doesn't exist.
So did they just rebrand?
Yeah. It became the FSB. And then they basically took over the entire government of Russia. Because we all know that Vladimir Putin is ex-KGB.
Yes, we do.
Trained KGB, did most of his time in Eastern Europe, was really, really good at counter-espionage and compromise operations, as evidenced by the United States. But the KGB was like target numero uno. It was the big one when the Soviet Union still existed, which it did while I was in the first half of my career. There were some really seriously very, very skilled guys in the KGB working at the Russian embassy, or the Soviet embassy, I should say, in Canberra, and also in their satellite offices and consulates.
What do you mean by skilled?
Well, they were really good spies.
Right. How, define a good spy, though. Like, is there average spies? Good spies?
Totally average spy. And as it turned out, I got to follow a really average... Well, I thought he was really average, but it turns out I think he was a genius because he was so obvious. It was so obvious that he knew he was being followed.
Kind of like Get Smart.
He didn't care.
Was he like talking into a foot?
No. Let me set the scene. I get to the office one morning and I'm literally told you're getting on a plane and you're flying to Sydney. We need bodies on the ground. And I'm just like, what? A diplomat has left Canberra and gone to Sydney, but has not cleared it with Foreign Affairs. Because with target countries that are technically our enemy, if you want to travel in the country, you kind of got to ask permission to move around. So he just got on a plane and flew to Sydney.
Right.
And it was like, oh my God, because we were pretty sure this guy was in the firm. He was one of the KGB operatives.
The firm.
Yeah. He had a really stupid position in the embassy, which generally is an indication that if you're not a co-optee, you're definitely an actual officer. So we thought, we've got to find out what this guy's doing. Let's go. So everyone gets to Sydney because a lot of other people are tasked. A lot of the actual surveillance guys in Sydney are tasked on other targets, so we can't pull them off that. We've got to keep our eyes on everybody else. So we start drawing people in. They drew me in because I had a little bit of training and I was available. And they put me with the head of mobile surveillance in Sydney so I couldn't get into any trouble. They kept me with the boss. So I was basically the second pair of legs with him, second pair of eyes. This guy from the embassy went to the Soviet trade office in Woollahra on Queen Street, quite close to the to Bistro Mon Coeur and several other very nice drinking establishments. As I discovered, there were some very nice drinking establishments because he visited all of them.
Right.
He left the Soviet trade office and started walking towards Oxford Street, like down Queen Street towards Oxford Street. And he stopped in every pub along the way.
Enjoyed a tipple.
Well, at 10 o'clock in the morning and you're drinking two shots, like two fingers of whiskey. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, of course.
It's breakfast.
It is breakfast.
What do you have? I have whiskey for breakfast. When do you drink vodka? Never vodka. That was the interesting thing. They
Really?
never drank vodka. Well, probably because they can get it so easily at home. Why would they bother drinking it here when they can get something else? What was interesting was he was using that to burn tail. Right, now, the whole idea is with mobile surveillance, the best way to shake a tail on foot is to let them know you can see them. So what would happen is he'd walk into a pub and then a surveillance team would walk in after him to see what he was doing. He'd be sitting at the bar with a whiskey, and as they walked through the door, he'd raise his glass to them.
Oh my God.
It was like, it was just like,
He's
we're
taunting
out.
you.
Yeah, we're out. Everyone was just like, we're out.
Yeah, right.
Right. So we follow him down the street. It winds up just being the head of surveillance and myself that walk into a pornographic cinema at the far end of Oxford Street, down in the city. This, it's just cringeworthy. It's horrible. It's like you didn't want to touch anything in case you stuck to it. It was...
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, now this is definitely one way to shake a tail, right?
Well, the whole thing is, it's like, yeah, it's one way to shake a tail, but what the hell is this guy up to? Who's he meeting? What's going on? And then in between the movies in this cinema, they had a stripper come out and do a live show.
All right. So I think, and what time is this? Like still in the morning?
Oh, we're getting into lunchtime now.
Okay. I mean, what else are you doing at lunch?
Yeah, what are you doing at lunch? You got the lunch shift? Yeah, it's terrible. Anyway, he got up on stage and joined the stripper and joined in.
Okay. Wait, what do you mean?
Not stripping. Exchange of bodily fluids.
Okay, so I still don't know what you mean.
He was having sex with the stripper.
On stage?
On stage.
Were there other people around?
Oh, yeah, there was us. There was everybody. It was in a cinema.
This is so bizarre.
Yeah.
I do not understand this.
Yeah, I know you don't. I didn't either. And I turned around to the head of surveillance and went, oh, my God, we don't have a camera. Because this is an incredibly compromising position for this person to put himself in. He's married. We've got him banged to rights. And I went, we don't have a camera.
Because we don't have mobile phones with cameras then?
No, we didn't.
No.
And the great thing is the surveillance officer looked at me and went, we don't have the right guy.
Oh, my God. So who were you following?
Oh, no, we were following exactly who we were meant to be following.
Right.
Because he wanted us to follow him.
Oh, but he wasn't the right guy.
He was not the right guy. Whoever we were meant to be following, we didn't have eyes on them. And that was the trick, right? He was basically put into the field, made a huge furore, which then the balloon goes up and we go looking for him while he's walking down Oxford Street, drinking himself to the point where he can get on stage with I'm going to be honest, an average-looking stripper.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, after like a whole bunch of whiskeys, everyone looks great.
Everyone's fantastic.
So it doesn't matter.
Yeah, he was wearing Johnny Walker goggles. He was completely happy. But the problem was, who was it we were meant to be following? Who was the person that was actually actively in charge of an operation.
Well, do you know the answer to that?
Yes, we do.
Okay, cool.
Now, it's a very difficult one because it involves other intelligence operations, other intelligence services, foreign intelligence services, and I don't want to go too far into it, but because it could reveal how intelligence works. But essentially, there was a person from that embassy who went camping on that day.
Okay.
And funnily enough, through sources, we discovered that the Russians kicked a geostationary satellite out of orbit for like about 3 orbits, and that orbit just happened to pass directly over where this guy from the embassy happened to be camping with his family.
Okay, so
essentially,
talk me through this.
Right, you've got a piece of information you need to get back to home base. How do you do it? Right now, it's easy. Okay. Now it's quite easy. You can send it through any number of file servers. You can because everything's online now. It's quite easy to move things around.
Yeah.
Back then, a lot harder because we didn't have a World Wide Web. So how do you get a piece of incredibly delicate intelligence to another location without it being seen? You send it to a satellite. But you've got to be in a position where a satellite can see you.
So you've got to be like literally standing under that satellite.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Because you want to do a direct beam up to that satellite, then that satellite sends it back down to headquarters, Dzerzhinsky Square in the Soviet Union, in Moscow, and they start reading it. So it turned out that about 3 weeks later we discovered that this had happened.
Okay, and you don't know what that was? That was
I would say right now we have no idea what that was to this day.
So in terms of the person you were following, was he a spy? Did he have anything to do?
Yeah, I'd said, definitely. Totally ID'd.
Okay.
Yeah, totally. But the weird thing was it really felt like his entire role in the embassy was to be a clown.
Was to take the piss, essentially.
Yeah. Literally, on so many levels.
Like, literally on so many levels. Yeah. Do you think they planned out that whole scenario?
Yeah.
Literally down to the having sex with this stripper on stage?
No, I think that would have been the opportunity that presented itself. I would say that what happened was he went, all right, I've got someone on my tail. He would have identified us by that point. By then we knew we were blown. And that's a poor turn of phrase for this conversation. But I think he would have gone, how long can I keep these guys watching me?
Right. So then this happens, right, with the stripper. What happens next? What's your next move?
Oh, we go home. I think someone slyly let his wife know what he'd been up to because there were reports of domestic disturbances that evening at his house when he got home from Sydney at about 9 that night. I believe it was a fry pan to his head. The whole thing was this guy did exactly what he had to do. He distracted. And that's one of the great things about intelligence is you don't know which, when you've got items in play, things are in motion, you don't know which one to watch. Right?
Yeah.
So the whole thing was this guy played the perfect role of the fall guy while the actual operation was taking place in a completely different location. And that's the great thing about intelligence. That's what I really like about it. It's like what's important and what's not. And a lot of the time you can get it wrong.
Some people take the straight path in life. But at Arizona State University, we respect your twists and turns. They make our online students more driven to excel in their professional lives. That's why our personalized suite of services empowers you with innovative resources and staff that sticks with you. Make your next turn with one of our 300-plus programs at ASU, #1 in innovation for 9 consecutive years. Visit us at asuonline.asu.edu to learn more.
Yeah, so you've got so what was the KGB?
KGB is their version. It was a foreign intelligence gathering organisation, right? But the thing is, it's really difficult. The Russians structure their intelligence differently. So the KGB has an internal component which looks after internal threats like ASIO would, but they also have an external component which goes outside and gathers intelligence, where ASIO has an internal presence, which is we look after ourselves. Our external or foreign presence, and there are ASIO officers that work overseas, they actually are there to liaise with foreign intelligence organisations. So you sit in that country, say you go to London, you're the first person we have that goes to contact MI5 or MI6 to talk about intelligence, right? The Russians probably have the same sort of thing, but they would, in the countries that they're allied with, but then they would have guys that sit there and outwardly try to recruit and gather foreign intelligence.
Right. So in terms of KGB, they've rebranded. Would you say that there is still Russian spies in Australia to that extent?
More so.
More so?
I reckon there would be more in the country now simply because we trade on so many similar levels as the Russians.
Yeah.
And that's really where all intelligence is sort of focused at the moment is like, yes, we love to know about your military. We really would. And we'll do everything we can to find out about it. But it's getting to the point, it feels to me, that military is so industrialized anyway, that it's industrial intelligence and trade intelligence that they're really interested in. A lot of the stuff that would be going on from the Soviet Union, going backwards in time, from Russia would be foreign interference.
Right.
That seems to be a really big portion of Russian intelligence at the moment is foreign interference, which everyone gets kind of upset about. But what I find funny about that at the same time is everyone does it. Right? The Americans, how dare you interfere in our elections? But you've interfered in so many political systems around the planet.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, if you look at American foreign policy, a lot of it has created in itself its own dramas.
Yes.
I mean, there's a whole theory called blowback, which looks at how September 11th was a byproduct of the Clinton administration bombing a Sudanese pharmaceutical company, which wasn't actually a pharmaceutical company. So there's all these things, and then them training Osama bin Laden for, to get the Chechens out of Russia. Like, in terms of when you look at the world as we know it, America has contributed to terrorism and what we're looking at right now.
Chalmers Johnson's book Blowback, which is the one who
that's the one I was
framed
talking about. So good.
Yeah, it's a brilliant book because you suddenly realise, okay, everything that keeps happening is happening because America, a lot of the time, America is conducting operations without considering what the consequence of that operation is.
Yes.
And that's a relatively common aspect of intelligence. There are times where you'll conduct an operation thinking this is going to work really well, this is exactly what we need to do, and the flip of it is, a year, 2 years, 5 years later, you realise we've created a problem as opposed to solving it. It's
kind of like the butterfly effect.
Yeah.
Like you think you're causing no ripple waves and then something just goes off. So when we're looking at spy agencies, is there a code? Does everyone work within a parameter of like ethics, or do you know what I mean? Like, is there a code of ethics? I don't know.
I mean, that's a really good question because there is a kind of code of ethics. I mean, my wife was watching, I just get dragged into it. She was watching NCIS LA.
Oh, right? God. And everyone dies.
Yeah, exactly. I at one point turned around and said, I really want to sit down and just mark up how many people get killed in an entire season of NCIS because everyone they're shooting people left, right and centre. It just doesn't work like that. Spies don't go out and kill each other. James Bond, he kills a lot of people. The whole thing is, if you kill one of ours, or you mess with one of ours, we're going to mess with one of yours. All right? Tit for tat is...
So it's an eye for an eye.
Yeah, it is regarded as fair play. So it is actually detrimental to kill people. Arrest them? Yep. Kick them out of the country? Definitely.
Right.
Declare them persona non grata? That is death to a spy.
Right.
Literally, being declared persona non grata is essentially telling the entire world, you are a spy, we identify you as a spy, good luck with your next job because you're out. And
have there been cases where that's happened?
Oh, yeah.
Like, could you give it an example?
One guy who was outed by the Reader's Digest. He was Go figure.
All these people sitting on their toilets now know they're spying.
What?
Because why is Reader's Digest always in a bathroom? I don't know.
Because it's a short read. That's it. It's short.
Yeah.
It's digestible, or the end of digestible, if you want. There would have been suspicions that this guy could possibly be, and he'd worked in several countries. And then the Reader's Digest basically went, a lot of spies believe that this man is a spy, and it was like, imagine this poor bloke sitting on the toilet going, oh no,
oh shit,
oh crap, my career is in the crapper. It's like, literally, your career is in the shitter. Moving on. And it did. It killed his career. It was over. Once you declared persona non grata, that's pretty much it.
Right.
The funny thing about it is there was always a suspicion that there was someone in ASIO that must have been a Russian mole. Right.
Yeah.
And that went right back to when ASIO was first established because the MI5 director who came over to Australia to establish ASIO, he sort of got embroiled with the Cambridge Five. Do we understand the Cambridge Five?
No.
Burgess, Philby, Meredith McLean, and one other. And the whole thing with the Cambridge Five they were these, Cambridge graduates, very, very hoi polloi, the upper crust of England, and they were all recruited by the KGB, and they were all working in MI5 and MI6.
But they were double agents?
Yeah, very famous. In fact, Philby was in Beirut. The Beirut used to be an absolute hotbed of spies. Now, Philby wound up in Moscow. He defected to Moscow and he basically died the life of a defector, which is a terrible way to go.
So what would you get out of being a double spy, especially for Moscow and the English? And then also, why would you defect that way?
Well, once you're exposed, you've got to get out. Once you've been exposed as a double agent, once you've been exposed as a mole, you're done.
But what would you get out of it? I don't
Freedom. You get that going, what?
No, but
being a double agent.
Being a double agent.
Well, that's where we get down to money, ideology, compromise, ego.
Right.
The basic core of how you recruit an agent.
Yeah.
Right, which is money, I can pay you. Problem with money is someone can pay you more. Well, it's traceable, but more than that. Well, not necessarily.
Right.
Bitcoin.
There's a lot of spies on the crypto market.
I'll give you a Bitcoin. I'm rich! But the thing is, if I can pay you a certain amount to work for me, then someone else can pay you more to work for them. So money is always part of the frame because people want to get paid. But it's the other three: ideology, compromise, and ego. Now, ideology, with the Cambridge Five, they were communists.
Right.
They would all gone to Communist Party meetings, and they all believed that the Soviet Union was the right way to go. Compromise, some of them were gay, and because of that, but they were also well-to-do and married and the whole thing, so they were trying to protect their reputations that way. And finally, ego, which is, you look at someone like Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump's already covered with money and compromise. Ideology, he doesn't have one. But if you were looking at recruiting him and,
narcissism. Playing to his ego. Yeah.
Play to his ego, which is you're the only person that can do this.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there you go. You got money. So I'm paying you to work for me. I appeal to your ideology. By the way, I've got you with your pants around your ankles and you're the only guy that can do this. Right, so you will work for somebody, and it's a beautiful art of persuasion. And I've done an exercise where I was recruited by an ASIO officer. It was an exercise. I was playing a role as an actor.
One of your greatest roles.
One of my greatest roles. Great role. Young Navy captain working in the... Oh, not captain.
Oh, the Hunt for Red October.
Lieutenant commander, not a captain.
Sean Connery. You played Sean Connery.
That's right. Yes. Be careful. There are some things that don't appeal to bullets. I perfected my Sean Connery walking phrase.
I bet you did.
Oh, yes. The thing is, so in that, I played a young lieutenant commander in the Navy who was working in the submarine division at Russell Officers. That was my role. This guy had to recruit me because I'd met a Russian diplomat at a party. And, the whole thing was this guy. And it's a series of meetings. And the great thing was the first meeting was, I get a phone call from this guy going, hey, look, I'm from ASIO. I really need to talk to you about something that's happened. Oh, okay, fine. I'm a military guy, so yes, I'll definitely go and have a meeting with you. So the guy shows up at my house and turns around and goes, this is what's going on. Have you met this man? Shows me a photo, and I know the photo. I've been briefed on it. Yeah. I met him at a cocktail party somewhere. And he went, yeah, well, he's KGB. And it's like, what? He's like, he's a KGB officer. Has he asked you anything? I just wanted some sounding maps of Sydney Harbour because he likes boating. And he was like, did you give them to him? Well, I won't. I'll sever all contact. And that's when they go, no. Give him the maps.
Right.
Because then it's now we've got an agent working against somebody we think is a foreign intelligence
officer. So it's
officer.
Double play.
So, yeah, it's all of this interweaving of... But the thing was, I knew I was playing a role. I know this guy was playing a role. And I still would have... You
were still doing it.
After 5 minutes, I would have gone, yeah, my mother, killer, cool.
Yeah.
I'm on it. Right? He was that convincing.
Yeah.
And a really, really good case officer is that convincing.
Right.
They're very persuasive and they're very forthright as well, which I found really interesting. I did the exercise a number of times, and some of them were just terrible. My favourite was one who turned around and went, I opened the door and you were never meant to work against somebody that you knew. And I opened the door. It's a guy I knew, and he went, "Oh, great, just give me the answers because there's this girl I'm going to meet up in half an hour." And it's like, I am going to call the police now because you said you were from ASIO, and you literally had to keep in the role.
Right.
You couldn't break protocol. And it was great. The second time I met him, he's like going, "Okay, yes, we've got to take it seriously." It's like, guys, you can't match us with people we know.
Which I can absolutely see why you enjoyed this, because it was all role play at some point.
Oh yeah. A lot of work.
It's a lot of acting.
Yeah, a lot of acting for me.
Did you feel like you're on one big constant movie set?
Oh God, I wish.
I know, but like, for example, when you're walking in and you see that gentleman having sex with a stripper on stage, it's just so absurd. It would be a storyline to a movie.
Yeah.
So absurd.
Totally, it was utterly ridiculous. But that's one of the interesting things, is that kind of absurdity really existed.
Yeah. And now, in terms of watching your targets, so you've kind of tapped into that a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, we've got as you say, there's a lot of people over here, a lot of spies working for different countries. Do you have eyes on all of them, or would there be some that you are unaware of? I'm assuming there'd be some you're unaware of.
I think there'd have to be.
Yeah.
I mean, they're very good at spotting them. One of the things that I did do when I was there was I used to see visa photos of Soviet delegations coming into the country. And the big game was spot the KGB.
Really?
Officer. Yeah, it was literally like, just from the photo, can you spot him? Because they always seem to have really heavy foreheads. They were always very rough, until we had the Soviet rugby team come in, and it was like, no one can pick him, because they were all just these really hard guys. But the thing that I really found fascinating about it was it's constant. It is constant. If somebody gets knocked out, if you find one, identify them, and if you then declare them persona non grata, you've got to go right back to the start and find it, because the new guy coming in isn't necessarily the next intelligence officer. The next spy could come in a completely different position. Right. So that it's shuffling. It's a jigsaw puzzle with 3-card Monte, poker, craps, and darts. It's just over the top.
And everyone's drunk.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Not yet.
We need to talk about alcohol.
We will get onto that. So I think,
We will? Excellent.
While we're drinking whiskey. So, I mean, what a great story to finish on. We've really wrapped up how to follow those targets, which is pretty exciting.
There's some techniques that we can go into in another episode. Driving a car surveillance is a completely another thing. Static watching is another thing. There's so much to talk about.
There's so much to unpack. Next week, we'll take a look at Bug in a Hot Tin Roof.
Ooh, that was not a good day for someone.
Not a good day?
No.
I can't wait to get into it.
Okay.